Hi everyone, welcome back. This is part 2. Last time we ended with Sudi Burnett coming to America, and let's hear the rest of her story.
Was the part 1 interesting?
It was very interesting, very, and I'm dying to hear the rest.
Thanks, love.
So what happened when you came to America? What was your next step in life?
Well, basically I came here with the mission of really making it on my own. Because as I grew up, going back to my childhood, I grew up in an extremely wealthy family. When you are born in a wealthy family, it doesn't really gives you any motivations or room to do anything. So couple of my brothers, they just wasted money, partying, getting into drugs and drinking and that stuff. So since I was the youngest child, my mother always used to tell me, reverse psychology, you are great, you're amazing, you're blah, 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 but don't become like your other sisters and brothers. I think that's setting a part of my obsession, that I have to be different. I have to, because I wanted so much to get my mother's approval, so I had to work really, really hard. I came with a mission that I'm going to make it on my own, and at age 18, of course, this is another my generation is different from the new generation, but I came with a plan of America is a land of opportunity, and I had my background reason that I had to prove to my mother that I'm going to make it on my own. So basically when I left Iran, I was telling my family that I was like, hug me at the last party. You're not going to see me again. And they were just laughing and joking. Yeah. You're probably going to come back in a month or two. And they didn't really believe me. But when I came here, I basically came with very little money. And I started really quick to think, what is the fastest way for me to make money?
Please tell us. I'm sure everybody wants to know.
I was really gutsy. So I was looking on the newspaper. The first thing I saw, Greek restaurant looking for a manager. Now imagine me, I'm like 18 years old, right? I walk into the restaurants and had an interview. And because, they were Greek, and there's some similarity between Iranians and Greeks and Turkish and Armenians.
Yes.
So as soon as I walk in, they thought I was Greek. Yes, I was like, no, I'm not Greek. I don't speak Greek. Where are you from? I said, I'm Persian. And they were like, oh, Soraya. They were very familiar with the second Shah of Iran, Soraya, which she was gorgeous and beauty. She became an actress in France, I believe. Anyways, so I got the job right away, and then I was supposed to work in the morning. Like they told me, can you be here 8 a.m.? Yes, I was there like 7 o'clock standing behind the door until they opened the door. So I started working. There were 3 partners, and then a couple of days after I worked, one of the managers came to me and he said, quietly in my ears, you never done this, have you? And I was like, oops, no, not really. And then he says, that's okay, I will teach you everything. Would you be willing to shift to the night shift and work with me? I said yes. So I started working in the afternoon, and right away I started college. So daytime I was going to college, and then I used to take the bus and a subway to make it to work to the restaurant. I started working from 7 p.m. till 2 or 3 a.m.
Wow.
And then the next morning college. So I did that 7 days a week. It got to a point that I picked up everything. I transformed the restaurant, making it from a very cheap restaurant into a very exclusive restaurant. Eventually, I asked my boss' wife to come and work with me at night, put her behind the bar, and we really made it happen. And then it got to a point like they were asking me, please, can you take a day off? I could be having colds, I could have been getting sick, I would have had anything. I didn't miss a day of work. And they were constantly like, can you go on a vacation? Please, we pay you to
Wow.
go. I was like, no, I can't do that.
So you were very driven and very motivated and had a big goal. And what was your goal?
At the time, it wasn't really clear about what I wanted to do. Of course, my passion since I was a child was entertainment, acting, singing. I used to sing too.
I want to hear.
That's another story
Next show.
to itself. Yeah, so I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do when I started college. I thought maybe business. I started studying business, but soon I found out that wasn't what I really wanted to do. So I decided, okay, I'm kind of bored and tired of working in a restaurant. What can I do to make quick money, good money, but then I can do other things too? So I went to school for cosmetology. 10 months full-time, still studying. I got my cosmetology license in 10 months. Then I started working daytime. I quit that job and I started working daytime as a hairstylist, colorist, and that stuff. I find a huge passion for colors. Like that was my first experiments, like doing highlights, and I was very creative, being a Taurus, loving beauty and that stuff. I was fascinated by making transformation. Like somebody will come and then I would do like 2 or 3 highlights in their hair and do the overall makeup and all that. So I was happy for a while, and then I started going to gym. When I entered the cosmetology school, one of my teachers started telling me how beautiful I was and I should become a model. So she started hiring a couple of photographers, taking pictures. And then when I saw the pictures for the first time, I was like, oh my God, because I always had like high cheekbones. I said, I am fat. And my obsession started and kicked in there.
Oh, wow. You are definitely not fat now, or I don't think you were then either.
I was like maybe like 107, 8 pounds.
What?
And I felt like I was really fat because, like I said, it doesn't matter how skinny or how fat we are. It's what the mind sees in the mirror.
So tell us about what happened next and what your process was after modeling and feeling like you're overweight even though you weren't at all.
The obsession started to a point that I used to have maybe like 10 to 15 coffees from morning till night, because at the time, when you're 18 or 19, you're not really conscious about being healthy. All you're thinking about is, I want to be size 0 or 1, and what would help me to do that? So as I was drinking coffee and cappuccinos, that would cut out my appetite. Then maybe around like 4 or 5 o'clock, I would have one single apple. And then I would go to the gym, work out about 2 or 3 hours at the gym.
Wow.
And then I would come home. Sometimes I literally remember, like I would count like lettuces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of lettuce, only fresh lime and lemon. I wouldn't even use like olive oil because that had calories.
Wow.
So I put my body physically and mentally under a lot of pressure. I used to get like 2 or 3 hours of sleep. I was working full time. I was going to college full time. I used to make it to the gym hardly sleep, and sometimes I wonder, when you're young, your body can take this stuff. Would I be able to do this today? Anyway, so I did modeling for 2-3 years. I did a lot of printing and that stuff, but then I switched to going to the gym. I used to work out so hard that people start asking me, how do you train? Because my body I was very skinny, I was ripped. I started getting into bodybuilding, and then I remember the manager of the gym came to me one day and he says, we have all these trainers, but everybody's asking for you. Why don't you get your license? And that was the next step for me. I became a personal trainer. Ever since then, I would say literally about 10, 12 years, I lived in the gym.
Wow.
From early morning till late night. I didn't have any other lives, and that was it. So finally, what did I do after that? Yeah, after that, I got into acting.
Yes.
One day I was sitting and I asked myself, I said, if I ever leave this planet, what would be my regret? What am I regretting? And I said, acting had been my passion all my life, and I never tried acting.
Wow. I'm kind of on the same page with that. I've always wanted to be an actress, but I never took the step to do that. And being in front of the camera kind of freaks me out, but I'm doing it, stepping outside of my comfort zone.
Awesome. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah. So what happened next? What did you do in acting? What roles did you play? How did you get into acting? Because it's not very easy to do.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I was still working full time. I just figured out very quickly, like I read about it. I find out one of the ways that you could make it to the world of acting is to become SAG, to become member of Screen Actors Guild. And I started doing background. So I signed up with an agency, and I was booked 7 days a week. Suddenly, like every agency wanted me, and I saw the progress. Like from the beginning, I was like a college kid. I used to be always booked as a college kids and that stuff. And then I started getting into like club scenes and that stuff. And then they ask you, like, do you have nightgowns? And I was always dressed up really well, and I had a lot of clothes. I was like, yes, I have a lot of like nightgowns and that stuff. And eventually I got casted as classy nightclub scenes and this stuff. So anywhere that was a wedding or orchestra and that stuff. So I started doing backgrounds like 7 days a week, and I was booked constantly. Finally, I think it was the movie, they call it Cop 2, but they changed it to something else. It was Harrison Ford with another young cop. They changed it to something else.
I think I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about.
No.
So in that movie, I got a line, and boom, I was Taft Hartley. So I joined SAG, because when you're getting into acting world, all you're thinking about is, how would I become SAG? Like, the minute you become SAG, it's like all these roles waiting for you, and the fame and all that stuff is going with it. Anyways, I became SAG, and then during this process, I remember my agent called me one day, and he says, hey, Sudi, I just signed you up for these commercials. They said you have to be fluent in Farsi and English. Are you fluent in Farsi? And remember, there's something really funny, because my English used to be perfect, and today I'm thinking about how the hell can you like lose a language, because these days I'm speaking Farsi, and I was like, my Farsi is a little bit rusty, I don't know. And anyways, I went for that audition not knowing the life that we think we're following. Sometimes it just feels like your destiny, it's been written. You know what I'm saying? I went for an audition and I came out and I said, oh, I really did bad. Like, I really messed that up. The same evening, I got a phone call from the television. This guy called me and he says, oh, I was just passing by and I saw a footage of your interview, when you were doing the commercials, and I'm looking for a TV hostess. Would you be willing to do a show? And I was like, no way. I have no interest on getting on Persian television. And he was really persistent. So finally he says, why don't you come just one day? You know, this is an international television. A lot of director, producers, they can see you, blah, blah, blah. I went in for one show and boom, that was it. 17 years.
Just got chills.
Television.
Wow, that's amazing. So, how was your experience with television, and how did that contribute in your journey now?
You know, basically, what I do today is life coaching, and I work with a lot of people who have blocks, like they're lost, they don't know where they're going. I teach goal settings and what are the steps for you to achieve your goals. But actually for me, myself, I didn't have any plan. I didn't even know what planning was. I guess it was every chapters of my life as I was going through it, I just trusted that it would lead me to where I have to go. So I had a lot of resistance. When they asked me to get on television, I was like, no, you know, my passion is really acting. Television is not my thing. I don't want to get on television. But then I just went through that process. It was a chapter of my life. I didn't know why I was doing it, but then I got really interested. People started to love me. And mainly, I think the reason I started to have all that connection with people and people connected with me so well was that I was so real. I was myself. I got on television and I started talking to my audience as I'm talking to you. I wasn't trying to portray a specific image. I didn't want them to see me anything that I wasn't. So I was real, and I think that's the part that is very attractive to people. Tell me if I'm wrong. To meet people who are real, to show people that you're okay to be who you are, and you don't have to be different. You can just be yourself, and it's safe to be you, and that's what I did. So I started to give out a lot of information. You know, from many lifetimes, I've been a counselor, I've been a teacher. So I started guiding people about healthy eating, nutrition, how to exercise. That's how it went. Eventually, people started asking me, do you have any exercise DVD? And I was like, no, I don't have one. So they planted the idea. And then I started to do exercise DVD number 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Then little by little, I was finding out what pieces is missing for people to achieve their goal, to have their ideal body weight. Then I started to realize that a major part of it is the stress and anxiety. I already had the experience by having OCD, being obsessed with my weight. When I studied that, when I studied psychology, I realized it's anxiety. Then I started to go one step further back. What causes anxiety? Today, I would say, if you ask me today, like what really causes anxiety, I would say when ego wants to control the future that is not here yet, and not being enough.
I can relate.
A lot of us can relate to that I wasn't enough. I tried all these years to prove to my mother that I am strong, I am tough, I can stand on my 2 feet, I don't need any help. I started to put a lot of walls around me. I totally forgot to be sensitive. I forgot to be emotional. I never ever cried. I never shared my emotions. If I ever had conversation with my family and they were asking me, especially my mom while she was alive, how are you doing? I always told her that I was doing great. I had times when I felt extremely lonely. I had times when I felt like I wasn't doing well, but I wasn't sharing it with anyone, especially my family. They were never, ever involved in my life of days that I was up and days that I was down. So that kind of, it took me through a process of totally shutting down. No feelings.
Is it because you wanted to show that you're strong and
Yes.
you're independent, you can do it? You're explaining me right now because I myself can be in anxiety at times because I'm worried about the future, and right now I am showing that I'm independent. I can take care of myself. I'm strong enough to do it. So I can relate to what you're saying.
I'm sure a lot of people do.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So, fast forward, I believe it was maybe 12 years ago. I was doing salsa DVD. I was looking for a couple of professional people, dancers, and I hired someone to teach me how to do salsa dancing. And as we're doing the rehearsals, she asked me one day and she says, do you want to see a healer? And I said, sure. And what is that? And she was like, well, the healer would help you to go through some process of your life, get to know yourself better, release some blocked energy and that stuff. And I was like, yeah, sure. I was always very open to explore and see new things. So she called in this healer. She came in. My first experience was she told me to lay down on her bed, and as I did, she started to speak this language that I didn't understand. Later on, I realized they call it angelic language. And she was like, this. It sounded like Mahatanana Sahababa. And I was like into really deep trance, and I was so listening to that and crying, and really, I was extremely emotional. I cried the whole hour as she was working on me. It got to a point that she asked me, she was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. So that was my first experience with her. Couple of days after that, I started to feel extremely emotional. It was like she awakened a lot of senses in me. Imagine me like really blocked, having a lot of walls around me, and suddenly I started to feel my cells, my emotions. I was extremely emotional and I was crying. So I called her up. I said, I don't know what you have done to me, but I've been constantly crying. I'm very emotional. And then every day as I was checking my emails, 2:00 in the afternoon, suddenly a high energy would hit my body, and I was like, I'm tired. I think I'm tired. Boom. Wow. And I would go into a trance. And that would happen every single day. I would lose myself. It was a state of self-hypnosis, and I would just totally go, and I would start to feel this pure white light is coming through my body. I felt like a lot of energy shifting and swirling through my body. It felt amazing. I felt very light. So I called her up and I said, I don't know what's going on in my body. You need to come and have a discussion and see what's going on.
Were you scared?
No, I wasn't scared because remember something, Vanessa, what I had since I was a little child. I never put myself in any box. I wasn't religious. I didn't follow any rules. I wasn't into any cult or anything like that. So I was totally, purely open. But there was always this inner knowing that there is something, whether we call it universe or we call it God, something is protecting me, something is watching over me, something is guiding me. And I always trusted fully and totally to that, although I didn't have a name for it or I didn't know what it was.
That's amazing.